Can't stop thinking about it. The smell, the taste, the way it made my lips feel, the fire in the lungs. I gotta take my mind off this. Are those cactuses? Who's this woman in this picture? I was gonna read these books once, but I got them on Amazon. Almost rode that bike. Whose little guitars are those? Oh, let's take the mind off. Just a little flame, a little flick. Oh, just the click of the lighter, the smell. Mango coconut surprise. Good God, look at it light. The fire burns deep within me. 21 days is a long time to go sober. 21 long, grueling... Wait, 21 days? Has it only been 21 minutes? I gotta blow this out. I gotta go get high.
There you go, folks. There's a little kind of real world setting there. It's just a little narrative scene I set up. We can talk about the lighting later on, but right now let's get into this review. Now, one of those scenes was shot with the SLR Cine 25mm T0.95. This is the HyperPrime Cine Mark III. And the other one was shot with the Metabones Ultra combined with the Rokinon Cine 35mm T1.5. And you'll notice that the Rokinon Cine was a tad brighter on the scopes. Now this is where it gets a little interesting. This whole thing started with a shitstorm of a video I put out called Say No to Micro Four Thirds. Started quite a little bit of a well, yeah, a train wreck, I suppose, would be the proper word for it. Lost some subscribers, gained some subscribers, but I think the overall takeaway is that we really started a good little conversation going. And as Stephen Hawking said it best, all we need to do is keep talking. So one of my loyal subscribers out there, Chris Ratchford with Video Pros out of Ohio, he volunteered and trusted me enough to send me his SLR HyperPrime Cine lens. On first go, you'll see here all natural lighting. I just put both of these side by side, both put them wide open. So the SLR was at a T0.95 and the Rokinon Cine was at its T1.5. However, as you can see on the scopes, they are almost exactly the same. Now this is where it got a little interesting for me because I thought, oh fuck, I was wrong. Here's the thing. The 1.5 on the Metabones Ultra drops this bad boy down to a T1. It can't go any lower than that. So here's one point where I will say I was wrong. A T0.95 on a Micro Four Thirds native lens is the same as a T1 on a full frame Metabones combo. I was wrong, folks. I thought for sure that this would still be brighter than this. However, the T-stop is the T-stop is the T-stop. So I will humbly and proudly admit I was wrong about a T-stop actually changes with the mount lens it is. I was wrong about that, I guess. The transmission of light is the same. So for those subscribers that I lost, I hope one day maybe they stumble upon this and get my apologies. For the rest of you, yeah, I'll put my foot in my mouth. Here, however, is where it got interesting. When I went for the narrative setting that I lit myself, I knew that I wanted to shoot on a T2. That's just kind of a sweet spot with these Rokinon Cines, and I figured it'd be the same on the SLR as well. So I made sure I dialed in my key light at a 2 and shot the first one on the SLR. Everything looked good. Then when I put on the Rokinon Cine at the T2, that's when I noticed, hey, they're not even anymore. Even though the Rokinon is set to a T2, the Metabones is actually making it a 1.4. Therefore, it is a full stop brighter than the SLR at a T2. So this is where you can still get some light advantage, if you will, for low light situations with your full frame Metabones combo. Because once you go beyond wide open and you start stopping down, anything you go beyond that wide open is going to be a full stop brighter. So keep that in mind. For instance, with your Mikey lenses, those start at a 2.2. So just know your Mikey wide open at 2.2 would be the equivalent of a Rokinon Metabones combo when it's set to 3.2. So there's a thin line there between who's right, who's wrong, folks. But I think at the end of the day, the Metabones full frame combo is going to be your best bet if you're looking to shoot a whole hell of a lot in low light situations. However, if you're looking just to, light narrative scenes like what I enjoy doing, then it probably won't be that big of a deal for you. However, one stop is one stop. Or you could just get these little SLR Magic HyperPrimes and just shoot wide open all the time. But either way, at the end of the day, it's like I told someone else in the comments, it doesn't really matter. We're just making art here, or what we think of individually as our own art. So just keep on shooting, do whatever the hell you want. Okay, moving on. Now we'll get into some true kind of tests here. Here you'll see I did the speed ramping. Now here's one thing where I think the Rokinon actually stands out. I like this effect when you're stopped all the way down, meaning when you drop that T-stop all the way down, it goes all the way to a T22 on the Rokinon. Look at those, look at that star. I love that star look. And you just can't get that out of this SLR Magic Micro 4/3 lens. I think it all has to do with the blades, right? So the blades kind of counts for that. I really dig that star effect. But also, I'm also a fan of the old Zeiss Ninja Star, and a lot of people don't like that either. So, but let's take a minute here and see how many blades we got in this bad boy. Oh, there is some oil on these blades, Chris. I'm noticing that right here when I'm trying to count these things. That's not good, brother. The SLR Magic actually has 12 blades, whereas this Rokinon only has 8. So that could be the very reason why, one, if you'll notice here, the bokeh on the Rokinon is very stop signy, which is not so cool. Whereas the SLR Magic has nice oval round bokeh, and mainly it's at 2.8. The 2.8 and beyond is where you see that octagon shape out of the Rokinon, whereas the SLR Magic at 2.8 and beyond, it still keeps nice oval shaped, almost like lemons. However, when they're both wide open, the bokeh is very, very similar. The Rokinon loses more of that octagon shape when it's wide open, as also you saw in that narrative opening shot as well. The focus breathing is where the SLR Magic really shines out. Amazing, almost zero focus breathing at all, and I was really impressed by that. It's even less noticeable than the Sigma Art 18-35, which you saw in a previous video. I'll put a link down in the description below. So that's pretty amazing. The only downside to this little SLR Magic lens that I could find is because it's so tiny, the motor for the Tilta Nucleus Nano, my rod base plate is too tall, essentially. So I had to, basically my motor was sitting straight up like this, straight up and down, and it wasn't at a good angle to properly rotate this lens. So keep that in mind if you are looking to build a complete set of these little SLR Magic HyperPrimes. By the way, these are super affordable. This little guy, you would need to get the thinnest little rod base plate you can find to make sure you can sit it at a proper angle so it can properly rotate these things. Because even though these are tiny, these are all metal, hardcore, really durable construction. I do like that. This is a little stiff. It's got a really nice, big, huge focus throw. But boy, I don't know if it's just, Chris admitted he hasn't used this that often, but man, I don't know if it ever loosens up or what, but this focus ring is pretty stiff. I mean, even doing it by my hand, I was like, whoa. And I don't know if that is good or bad. I kind of like how simple I can move the Rokinon. Again, though, it's just all plastic. I love the build of this, but if you were going to invest in this, just think about that, getting a slimmer base plate for your rod so your motor can ride there. I mean, the SLR Magic is a little bit more rich. I guess that's the best, for lack of a better word, that's all I can say. The colors just seem to be more rich out of the SLR Magic. The one thing that has been keeping me away, because I have been studying these lenses for quite a few years now. When I first started shooting on the original BlackMagic Pocket Cinema camera, I was collecting C-mount lenses because those seemed to be the best affordable bet, especially with that little super 16mm sensor that had almost a 3x crop. That little baby camera had a 2.88 crop factor. So the C-mount lenses, you could go pick up a Fujinon C-mount. I had a 12.5mm at a f1.4, and I got that for like $150. However, that thing had insane color fringing, just insane colors, crazy flares. I mean, a lot of weird stuff going on with those C-mount lenses. And there are some rumors online that SLR Magic are simply just rehoused C-mount lenses. And that rumor got started because apparently when SLR Magic first came into business, they were having a C-mount manufacturer build their lenses for them. So that's kind of how that rumor got started. I don't know how true that is. For their original lenses, I could see how that could be, especially that 8mm f4 that they make. It does look a lot like some of the C mounts I used to own. However, this lens, I didn't experience any, I mean, you can see in all these videos, no real crazy fringing, not any different than the Rokinon Metabones combo anyways. I really like the style of these. So, and I also looked up what was the difference between the 3rd generation versus the Mark II Cine HyperPrimes, and mainly they just said they put a bigger filter thread on the 3rd generations. So these Mark III HyperPrimes now have a 52mm front thread, and they did that so you could use it along with the SLR Magic Anamorphot, which does look like a pretty badass option using the SLR Magic Anamorphot with these little SLR Magic Cine lenses. But then of course you'd have to get the SLR Magic rangefinder diopter in the front. So then you'd be focusing 3 different lenses at once. And I don't know, that seems like an awful big chore to me when there are some other kind of anamorphic options out there that I've been researching into as well. So more tests to come as we get closer to November. That's when I'm shooting the feature film. And yeah, I don't know if we're gonna go move on this journey with Rokinon Cines and Metabones. I actually stumbled across some other cool options. It does require collecting some vintage glass, so I don't know if I want to jump down that wormhole again. If you're interested in the lighting on that narrative shot there, you'll see what I did. As I said, I dialed in that key light at a 2 using my Cinemeter 2 light meter with the Luxy for All lighting dome. I've done videos on that. Leave a description down there below if you're new here. Anyways, I took the China ball. I do have to admit, I was too lazy to go down to the garage and get more C-stands and lighting stands and stuff, so this one is a little bit more ghetto than, even more ghetto than what they usually are. So as you see, I took the China ball out there, backed it off, and threw the unbleached muslin over it to get it down to a 2, because as I said before, I wanted to shoot at a T2 on both of the lenses. And then to block off the light from hitting the background, back there on the bookshelf, I threw on a piece of Duvetine and just threw it on 1/2 of the China ball. So there was my key light. And then for the background light, I had that little salt rock in the back turned on. I had it dimmed pretty low. It was just barely clipping. And then for my top backlight, I took my little fake light mat and put that on all the way down on tungsten mode. I think it goes to like 32 or 3400. Dimmed it all the way down, and it was still coming in at like a 1.8, and I wanted it more around a 1. So even with the little softbox diffusion thing it comes with, but that only stops it down 25%. So then I threw on a 216, which is a full diffusion gel. That still wasn't enough. So then I put on a full grid, brought it a whole stop down, and then I also threw on a bunch of gaff tape. You'll see there strips of gaff tape to break up the light, give it more of a Cucaloris effect, and then that brought it way down. Then I was able to bring it up to around a 1, flew that up on the C-stand and just shined that down on the background. That's how I popped him away from the bookshelf there at the top. And then I added the little baby faux quasar tube for just a little tiny level of just an extra little eye light when they're standing there on the mark at the top and at the end. And then of course the candlelight at the end. And I tried to incorporate things that would show off the lens, like racking focus and then, you know, blurring out and coming back. Just trying to think of new ways to keep these tests interesting as we move along. There you go. Let me know your thoughts on it down below. If you're shooting wide open, these things are going to be pretty identical in terms of the amount of light you're bringing in. But once you have to stop down to a 1.4 and beyond is when you're really going to gain that extra stop of light. So just keep that in mind, folks. I strive to be as genuine as possible. And, you know, this YouTube world is no exception from the real world. As always, thanks for watching. And till next time, that's a wrap.